want to talk to you for a few minutes about the Cold War. There's not an actual war that takes place between the United States and the Soviet Union, but they're the two major players. There are other wars that happen, but they're not between the United States and the Soviet Union. The Cold War is actually more of a time frame. It's an era. It takes place in the second half of the 20th century, after World War II, right up until about the 1990s. Now, the causes for the Cold War go pretty far back. You could even say that as far back as the Bolshevik Revolution in the Soviet Union or Russia. The United States didn't really like that because we didn't like communism, so we didn't recognize Russia as being its own independent nation for 16 years after the revolution actually took place. But there are some causes that actually take place during World War II. First of which was that the Soviets wanted to help in Eastern Europe. They were getting destroyed on the Eastern Front. Germany was just sending troop after troop in, and it was lasting a long time. Stalin felt that we could come in and take some pressure off of the fighting that the Soviets were doing if we would go in and help them. It takes a while for us to get involved to the point where Stalin feels like we're actually doing our part to help them. Also, we developed an atomic bomb before the Soviets did. This really angered Stalin, for reasons not the least of which was because the Soviets were working on their version of an atomic bomb as well, and we beat them. So national pride was on the line. Secondly, it puts us ahead of the Soviets in terms of military strength. So he's angry about this. He's so angry about this that he went back on a promise that he had made earlier. At a place called Yalta, Stalin had agreed that he would have free and open elections in the Eastern European lands that he would get after the war was over. Well, he finds out that we have an atomic bomb, and he changes his mind at Potsdam and decides that the people in the lands that he's going to get following World War II, he's just going to install a leader, and they're not actually going to elect officials for themselves. The United States also terminated Lend-Lease, and Lend-Lease was the United States would give aid in the form of supplies to countries that were favorable to us during the war. And with the Soviet Union being on our side in World War II, you would figure that we would continue to give supplies to somebody that was on our side. However, towards the end of the war, we end Lend-Lease with the Soviets, and this is obviously very upsetting to them. And finally, we didn't appreciate the fact that the Soviets entered the Pacific theater of the war almost at the very last moment. We had dropped a bomb on Japan, and they knew that the end was near, and they came in at the last moment and said, hey, we're here to help, and basically grabbed some land for when the war ends. And this will be important as we go forward in terms of how those lands are divided between the Soviets and the United States. In 1945, we develop the first atomic bomb. So we are the first to get it. We beat the Soviets, and this is upsetting to them, like I said. It makes us the lone superpower in the world, and we remain the lone superpower in the world for 4 years because we have the bomb. We're also a very strong economic force following World War II, but this is what really separates us from the rest of the pack. It is our firepower. Now, in 1949, the Soviets catch up by developing their own atomic bomb. They were able to do this with a spy network. It makes the Soviets a superpower along with us. So now there are two superpowers in the world, the United States and the Soviet Union. And we are basically staring each other down for the next 50 years. We never actually feel very comfortable with the other one in the world because we don't know what the other one's going to do. Stalin's broken promises, they make us feel like the Soviets are very untrustworthy, and I would also say that we weren't very trustworthy during the Cold War. In 1952, we take another step forward by developing the first thermonuclear weapon, the hydrogen bomb. This first bomb was called Big Mike, and it was so big, it was 1,000 times more powerful than the atomic bombs that we dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And to give you an idea of just how powerful that is, the test site where we detonated Big Mike, the island that we detonated it, disappeared. We completely vaporized it. It was no longer on the map after we were done. Well, our miniature victory, or actually a big victory, in developing the thermonuclear weapon that is the hydrogen bomb, it's short-lived because the Soviets, like if we're here with the hydrogen bomb, they catch us just months later. They develop their own. And this is the beginning of what is called the arms race. Whatever we develop and use to get ahead, the Soviets develop to stay right with us. Whatever the Soviets develop to get ahead of us, we then try to match them and stay right lockstep with them as a nation. It's not just bombs, it's tanks, it's guns, it's planes, it's spies. They have their spy networks, we have our spy networks. So this is the arms race. This is where they try to get ahead and we try to get ahead of them. It's a race to get the biggest, most powerful of everything. Why does any of this matter? Well, it matters because it is the beginning of an age of fear in America. It's a fear of the atomic bomb because of what the atomic bomb can do to our lives, namely take away our lives. You also have what we call the Red Scare, specifically the second Red Scare. It's a fear of communism. Whenever we say that something is red, we mean that it's communist. So this Red Scare, this fear of communism, it's a fear of losing our way of life, our democratic principles, capitalism, things like that, the ability to choose your own religion and to worship freely. We call these big parts of our lives, we call them ideologies, and that's definitely a word that you're going to need to know. An ideology is just an underlying principle in how we believe that life should be lived. And the United States and the Soviet Union have very different ideologies. It is at this time as well that a man named Joseph McCarthy is able to rise to a short-lived prominence in the United States. He is a man that takes on communism head-on, but his methods are sketchy at best. And there is a video that you can watch about McCarthyism that is on Student View. If you haven't seen it, you need to go take a look at it. It's only about 3 minutes long, so it won't take you very long. But it sort of introduces you to McCarthyism and the kind of person that he was. First thermonuclear weapon ever developed.
Evelyn Hughes, please come to the 6th grade pod. Evelyn Hughes.